They didn't ask. They didn't warn me. They didn't even knock on my door. I woke up one morning and discovered my road, the road I built with my own money, had been taken over by an HOA that thought it could erase my ownership with a few signs and a vote. What happened next shut down their entire neighborhood, and every single car disappeared. Backstory: 0:45 to 3 o'clock. I bought my land more than 2 decades ago. Back then, it was quiet countryside. No subdivisions, no committees, no rules written by people who didn't own the ground they stood on. The dirt road running across my land wasn't public. It wasn't shared. I designed it, graded it, and maintained it myself. It was my access point to the highway and essential for my work. Years later, developers arrived. What used to be open land became a polished suburban neighborhood with matching mailboxes, identical houses, and one powerful entity controlling it all, the Homeowners Association. At first, the HOA treated me like I didn't exist. That changed the moment they decided my road was inconvenient. The takeover: 3 to 6 o'clock. One morning, I found barricades blocking my access. Bright orange cones. Brand new signs. Private community road. Resident access only. They had installed speed bumps, security cameras, and eventually a locked gate on my property. When I drove through anyway, I received a citation from the HOA for unauthorized road usage. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a test. Confrontation: 6 to 8:30. I went to the HOA office calmly. No anger. No threats. I asked one question. Can you show me the deed? They couldn't. Instead, they told me the board had voted and that the road was now considered community infrastructure. They spoke with confidence, like ownership was something you could vote into existence. I warned them politely that they were trespassing. They laughed, so I stopped talking.
Irat professionals.
A licensed land surveyor confirmed what I already knew. A land use attorney documented everything. Historical records showed the road had never been dedicated to the city. It was private property, mine. I sent the HOA a certified cease and desist letter with deadlines and legal citations. They ignored it. Instead, they escalated. They sent me a letter claiming they were invoking eminent domain. An HOA trying to use government power. That arrogance cost them everything. I didn't argue. I acted. At dawn on a Saturday, heavy machinery arrived on my land. Excavators, dump trucks, road crews. By midday, the road no longer existed.
No gravel.
No surface. No access. The gate they installed now trapped the neighborhood inside. Dozens of cars sat useless in driveways with no exit. People panicked. Emergency calls flooded in. But here's the thing: everything I did was legal. Police arrived. I showed documents. They left. City officials tried to intervene. My attorney intervened harder. The HOA filed an emergency lawsuit. The judge dismissed it within minutes. Residents turned on the board. Fines poured in. Insurance dropped them. Board members resigned. Within weeks, the HOA collapsed completely. After the HOA dissolved, I rebuilt the road. Same path. Same quality. One difference. A sign at the entrance. Private road. Access by permission only. Now, the same people who tried to take it ask politely to use it. I allow it. For a fee. Because ownership isn't a vote. Power isn't a title. And respect isn't optional. Thought it was over. The HOA was gone. The road was back. And the neighborhood was quiet. Then my phone rang. What they did next wasn't about a road anymore. It was about revenge. For a few weeks, life returned to normal. Residents used the road respectfully. Most paid the access fee without complaint. Some even apologized for how the HOA had treated me. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just moved on. That's when I noticed something strange. City inspectors started showing you. First, it was a zoning complaint. Then an environmental inspection. Then a noise violation on land miles from any residence. Every visit ended the same way. No violations found. But they kept coming. Someone was pulling strings. Former HOA board members, angry and embarrassed, had decided if they couldn't control the road, they would try to bury me in bureaucracy. They underestimated how prepared I. Online reviews appeared overnight. Dangerous landowner. Abuses power. Blocks emergency access. Local social media groups turned hostile. They painted me as a villain who trapped families and endangered children. None of it was true, but lies spread faster than facts. So I documented everything. I filed public record requests, emails, phone logs, meeting notes, and that's when I found it. Former HOA leaders coordinating false reports with a city employee who lived in the neighborhood. That crossed a line. I didn't threaten. I didn't warn. I filed suit. The case moved fast. Evidence was overwhelming. False reports, abuse of authority, harassment. The courtroom was silent when the judge read the findings. Former board members were fined. The city employee was terminated. Public apologies were ordered. The smear campaign collapsed overnight. Now something changed. People stopped whispering. They listened. Residents formed a voluntary neighborhood committee. No HOA, no enforcement power, no fines. They asked me to advise them. I agreed. On one condition: respect property rights. Always. Power isn't about control. It's about boundaries. And the moment you cross someone else's property line, you step into consequences. They tried to destroy me. Instead, they destroyed themselves. I thought the worst was over. The lawsuits were done. The lies were exposed. The HOA was gone. Then I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was one document that proved this was never just about a road. After the courtroom fallout, the neighborhood changed. People avoided eye contact. Former HOA supporters stayed quiet. Everyone acted careful. Too careful. The road access fees kept coming in on time.
No complaints.
No resistance. That should have been my first warning. Because when people suddenly behave, it usually means they're planning something. It started with land offers. Developers called me one after another, offering to buy my property. Above market value. Cash.
Fast closings.
They all used the same words. Strategic access. Transportation corridor. Future development. That road again. I declined every offer. Then the pressure increased. The hidden pressure. 6:30 to 9:30. Utility companies contacted me about planned easements. Survey stakes appeared near my fence. Unannounced. A state transportation consultant requested a meeting. This wasn't local anymore. Someone bigger had stepped in, and they were Patty. Evidence was overwhelming. False reports, abuse of authority, harassment. The courtroom was silent when the judge read the findings. Former board members were fined. The city employee was terminated. Public apologies were ordered. The smear campaign collapsed overnight. Now something changed. People stopped whispering. They listened. Residents formed a voluntary neighborhood committee. No HOA, no enforcement power, no fines. They asked me to advise them. I agreed. On one condition: respect property rights. Always. Power isn't about control. It's about boundaries. And the moment you cross someone else's property line, you step into consequences. They tried to destroy me. Instead, they destroyed themselves. I thought the worst was over. The lawsuits were done. The lies were exposed. The HOA was gone. Then I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was one document that proved this was never just about a road. After the courtroom fallout, the neighborhood changed. People avoided eye contact. Former HOA supporters stayed quiet. Everyone acted careful. Too careful. The road access fees kept coming in on time.
No complaints.
No resistance. That should have been my first warning. Because when people suddenly behave, it usually means they're planning something. It started with land offers. Developers called me one after another, offering to buy my property. Above market value. Cash.
Fast closings.
They all used the same words. Strategic access. Transportation corridor. Future development. That road again. I declined every offer. Then the pressure increased. The hidden pressure, 6:30 to 9:30, utility companies contacted me about planned easements. Survey stakes appeared near my fence, unannounced. A state transportation consultant requested a meeting. This wasn't local anymore. Someone bigger had stepped in, and they were Patty. I had faced developers. I had faced bureaucrats. I had faced aggressive HOAs, but nothing prepared me for this. When the senior official leaned over the table and said, "We want you to be part of the plan," I realized this wasn't a threat. It was an ultimatum. They weren't asking for my road. They were offering a deal, control, influence, profit, all in exchange for compliance. I could help shape the infrastructure project. I could turn my road into the centerpiece of a regional corridor. And my land, my property, would generate more revenue than I ever imagined. But there was a catch. Saying yes meant aligning with the very people who tried to erase me. It meant negotiating with developers, bureaucrats, and lobbyists. It meant sacrificing some independence. Saying no meant they'd move forward anyway, with legal pressure, eminent domain tactics, or slow bureaucratic erosion. Either choice carried risk, and either choice would change everything. I requested time. I needed to know exactly what I was signing up for. Back home, I walked the road I had built. Every gravel stone, every mile marker, every fence post reminded me this was more than land. This was history, legacy, and power. I realized something. The developers, the HOA, the government, they all underestimated me. Over the next weeks, I negotiated. Small concessions at first. Strategic delays. Legal loopholes. Every meeting was a chess game. Every document carefully worded. Every handshake calculated. They tried to rush me. I didn't blink. I let them believe I was scared. I let them think I was desperate. Meanwhile, I quietly strengthened my position. Then came the moment no one expected. A competing developer tried to bribe a county official to bypass me entirely. They thought I was just a nuisance. They thought I see. Pulling out now meant massive losses. Continuing meant delays that killed investor confidence. One by one, partners withdrew. Funding dried up. The project stalled. I thought I'd seen every angle. HOAs, developers, city officials. I was wrong, because the next letter didn't come from a lawyer. It came from the government. It arrived by certified mail.
No sreds. No acquiesctions.
Just a single sentence that made my stomach drop. Your property has been identified as critical to a regional infrastructure initiative.
No explanation. No negotiation.
Just notice. That's when I understood. The developers weren't the final boss. They were scouts. This time there were no smiles.
No casual meetings.
No backroom deals. Federal consultants requested access. State transportation officials wanted assessments. Agencies I'd never dealt with before suddenly knew my name. They didn't ask if they could take the road. They asked how difficult it would be. That's a very different question. I brought in specialists, not just lawyers, people who understood infrastructure seizures, long timelines, and quiet pressure. They all said the same thing. If they move forward, this won't be fast. But it will be relentless. This wasn't about profit anymore. It was about control. The truth finally came out. A regional logistics corridor. Emergency routing. Future expansion plans spanning decades. My road wasn't just convenient. It was perfectly placed. And once something becomes critic, not because I said no, but because I said yes carefully. Weeks later, I received another call. A different developer. Smaller. Local. They wanted a partnership. Not control. Not seizure. A lease. Revenue sharing. And respect. This time, the power was mine. But the game wasn't over yet. Because someone else had been watching everything. After years of battles, after HOAs, developers, and government agencies tried to take what was mine, I finally had to make the hardest choice of my life. Would I protect my independence or turn my road into something far bigger than I ever imagined? I walked the road at sunrise just like I had done when I first built it decades ago. Every mile of gravel reminded me this road survived storms, lawsuits, and greed. It was not just a path to my property, it was proof of persistence, strategy, and patience, and now everything hinged on one final decision. I returned to the government office's documents in hand. Developers, engineers, and regional planners waited. The tension in the room was thick. I spoke calmly, measured every word. "I will cooperate," I said, "but on my terms, my road, my rules, access and profits shared fairly, nothing more." They were silent, then they nodded. It was the first time I felt the upper hand. Over the next weeks, I executed the plan. My road became the central corridor for regional logistics. I retained ownership, gaining legal protections that made my land untouchable. Developers paid for access rights, and long-term leases. Emergency routes were preserved, and local residents benefited from improved infrastructure. I had not just survived, I had turned decades of aggression into long-term advantage. But there was one last challenge. A national developer tried a final maneuver claiming federal priority. Most people would panic, most would pay the price. I did not. Using every piece of documentation I forced a full review. The developers realized too late they could not override my ownership without years of delay and legal costs. More than any battle could. Ownership is more than a deed. Patience beats aggression. Strategic thinking wins where force fails. The HOA tried to take it, developers tried to seize it, government tried to co-opt it. I outsmarted them all, and now my road is more than a road. It is a symbol of persistence, planning, and absolute control over what is yours. I drive along the gravel, feeling the sun on my face. The gates are open, the signs stand tall. Private road access by permission only, but this time it is not just about control, it is about respect, and every car that passes pays it willingly. For years they underestimated me, now they remember me, and that road is mine forever. Just when I thought the battles were behind me, a new threat appeared. Someone had been watching the road, the traffic, the deals, and my every move. I noticed strange vehicles parked at the edge of my property at odd hours. Drones flew overhead and unfamiliar faces appeared in the neighborhood. It was subtle at first, almost invisible, but I could feel the tension building. I decided to investigate quietly. I traced the origins of the drones, checked license plates, and monitored activity without alerting anyone. Every clue led to a private security firm hired by unknown interests. They were not developers, they were not government, they were someone else entirely, someone powerful, someone who knew the value of my road and wanted it for reasons I could not yet understand. Instead of confronting them, I set a trap. I allowed them to think they were observing. I gathered evidence, documented their schedules and patterns, and ensured every action was recorded legally, ethically, and carefully. I was preparing for the moment when they would overreach. Weeks passed and the pressure mounted. They tried to contact me indirectly through intermediaries. I ignored them. I let them think I was unaware, but in reality every move they made was being cataloged and analyzed. I was patient, I was ready, and I had the advantage of no. That night I realized the lesson was bigger than land or control. The road was not just a path, it was a test of strategy, of persistence, and of understanding who really holds power. I had survived HOAs, developers, governments, and now even hidden threats. I understood that vigilance and intelligence were my strongest weapons. I walked the road alone under the stars, feeling the gravel beneath my feet. I knew the road would continue to face challenges, but I was ready. Every gate, every sign, every mile was a reminder of what I had achieved and what I was willing to protect. The road was mine, and I was prepared for whatever came next. The days grew longer and the shadows deeper. As I realized the hidden threat had not disappeared, they were still out there watching, waiting for a mistake. Every movement on my road, every vehicle, every conversation was being scrutinized. I could feel it in the air, tension thick and unrelenting. I began to prepare in ways they could not see. I reinforced gates, monitored every entrance, documented every suspicious activity, and coordinated with trusted allies in law enforcement and local authorities. I made sure that nothing could be done without me knowing, nothing could happen without me having control. Then the final confrontation began. They tried to approach using influence and intimidation. They thought their power and money would force my hand, but I had learned over the years that patience, planning, and strategy could defeat even the strongest opposition. I let them come closer, knowing exactly what they were attempting and exactly how I would respond. The night of the showdown arrived. I watched from my property as their vehicles gathered at the entrance and their operatives moved into position, but I did not panic. I stayed calm and allowed the law, the evidence, and my preparation to handle the situation. The moment they overstepped the boundaries, one by one they were exposed, their plans revealed, and their authority nullified. They had assumed secrecy and fear would give them advantage, but it was their miscalculation. I had the upper hand, and I used it to assert that my road, my property, and my rules were untouchable. As the dawn broke, I walked along the gravel of my road, the cold morning light reflecting on the signs and gates. Every mile, every fence, every marker was a symbol of my resilience and my victory. The road had survived HOAs, developers, governments, and hidden threats. It had survived every challenge, and now it stood as a testament to strategy, intelligence, and perseverance. I knew the battles would continue in different forms, but I also knew that I had learned how to face any challenge. I had turned threats into opportunities and opposition into respect. The road was mine, and I was ready for whatever the future would bring. The years of struggle, the battles, the threats, and the schemes had all led to this moment. I stood at the entrance of my road, the gravel warm under my feet, and the morning sun spilling light across. Every mile I could feel the weight of every decision, every confrontation, and every strategic move that had brought me here. The HOA was gone, the developers had been outsmarted, the government had been shown respect and limits, and the hidden threats had been neutralized. All who had tried to take control had learned that persistence, patience, and intelligence could not be beaten. I walked along the road, watching cars pass with permission, paying respect and acknowledging boundaries. Every sign, every gate, every turn was a testament to what had been endured and what had been achieved. I had not just protected my property, I had built a legacy, a symbol of strategy and perseverance. Neighbors and allies who once doubted now nodded in respect, understanding that this road was more than gravel and dirt. It was a path forged through challenges, a path that represented resilience and careful planning. The road co.